and welcome everybody to Project Impact. It is a collaboration between T10 Collective and the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce. And we're happy to discuss today the topic of search marketing, analytics, and how we can transform insights into action. So excited for you all to be here so we can hopefully shed some information and also help support and empower your different businesses and ventures. So with that said, I'd like to kick it off and go to the next slide. Perfect. So who we are. As I mentioned in the opening, we're Talented 10 Collective. And to give you a little background about us, myself, Donald Weber, and I have two co-founders, Matthew Winter and Kevin, who are all on this webinar with us. And we're three individuals who kind of came together from different walks to bring this company together. So each of us have over a decade's worth of experience in various industries. Myself personally, I have a background in management consulting, strategy and finance. And then my colleagues have experiences in other areas like marketing and advertising, private equity and investment banking. And with all of this corporate experience, we wanted to find and explore ways in which we can pour that experience back into our communities. And we've been doing that. We were founded about 3 years ago. And since then, we've been doing various activities and ventures to kind of pour those experiences back into our communities. So one is we curate and facilitate workshops with local community centers and elementary schools, public schools, and charter schools in the city. We also provide consulting services to small businesses, whether that's helping with holiday campaigns, launching brands, amplifying brands, and looking at your operations. We do kind of all those things. And then also we're focused now on providing and creating original thought-provoking content that tells our story. Because it's something as we've grown, we've found more of a passion, but also an importance in. And then lastly, we look to launch innovative ventures in our community as well. So looking at ventures that don't only provide enterprise, but grassroots level impact in our communities. So that's kind of what we're focused on. And one of these concepts is kind of what we're discussing today. So from that, I'll transition to the next slide. Okay, so just as a quick series overview, we're now in our third installment. And to give you maybe a little bit of background, once the pandemic hit, myself and my two co-founders were really trying to explore what ways we can give background and information to our community. How can we best provide support? And we figured we would do so by connecting with the grassroots organizations that has direct connections to our community. And we had already developed a partnership with the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce, and we are a member. So we approached them and brainstormed for different ideas, and one of which we fell on was the series Project Impact. And we're really focused on was how can we support our local businesses to make sure that they can survive, sustain, and also grow during these pandemic times. So we started out with really focusing on what we can do today. How can we address the most immediate needs? And that really was a focus on providing financial stability. So our first part one and launch session was really focused on how to navigate and also tap into a lot of the federal programs that have been rolled out and provide small businesses with opportunities to collect funding. And then we transitioned to our second installment, which really was now what can we do tomorrow? And in there, we focused really on adapting to a digital world. So we talked about the importance and the use of social media and how you can use various tactics to amplify your brand, build a digital community, and hopefully gain more awareness. And now we're bringing it to our third installment where we're focusing on the future. So we're looking for ways in which we can not only amplify your brand, but how can you take that idea you have that you maybe have been thinking about for some time? How do you take your company that's already underway and how can you position it successfully for the future? How can you optimize for success? So today we're going to be talking about search marketing in specifically, and then how you can use different sets of data and analytics to inform and transform that into action that could hopefully grow your business and help it build sustainably into the future years. So that's really kind of where we're going to be focusing today. Okay, and then my co-founder and colleague here, Matthew, is going to take you through the agenda.
Hey everyone, so thank you, Donnie. So just a quick rundown of what the agenda is going to look like for today. So as you saw on the flyer, we're going to start with search marketing, which is probably something that you probably aren't staying up at night thinking about, and it also is something that you probably don't know a lot about, and that's okay because the whole purpose of this presentation is for you to walk away feeling a lot more confident about not only your knowledge of search marketing, but also how you can use it as a tool for your business moving forward. From there, we're going to talk a lot about Google Analytics. It's probably one of those things that sounds very complicated and sophisticated, but believe me, it is something that as we go through it, you'll not only understand how easy it is, but also how powerful it is as a tool for you to be able to turn any type of data point that you're gathering from your business into an action item. And so directly after that, we're going to have our feature conversation, which we're joined by the lovely Lisette Scott from JAM RICO. We're really excited to have a conversation with her. Lisette goes back many years with the T10 Collective, and so we're excited to be able to have that conversation with her, and we're sure you guys will as well. And from there, we're just going to go over some quick next steps coming out of this presentation, as well as a quick rundown of the Support Harlem Now campaign, which our partners, the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce, are running. Sound good? What I will ask for you guys, though, is that let's try to make this as interactive as possible. We have roughly 20 of us on the call, and I know we're all getting acclimated to Zoom meetings, which are obviously a lot more awkward than we're used to with our in-person stuff. But if you have any questions or want to just make a comment, or even if something's just interesting to you, feel free to use that chat box. That's our way for all of us to stay engaged. And to start it off, I'm going to give you a few other quick rules of the world. So first and foremost, do not worry about jotting down notes furiously for the presentation materials. We will be passing this information on to you after the event. And so really we want you to just kind of be engaged, really take the time to kind of listen and process and, take your quick notes, but don't feel like you have to write down everything because we will be passing this along at the end of the presentation. There will also be a replay of the webinar that will be available to you as well. So you'll be able to see this exact presentation and hear me say the exact same words again when you watch it. If you do enjoy the presentation, we would love to hear why. We're going to send you a brief survey for you to fill out. Trust me, it's only 3 questions and they're they're multiple choice. So don't feel like it has to be something long-winded. But if you enjoyed it, or maybe you didn't enjoy it or have some constructive feedback for us, we would also love to hear it. So more importantly, please make sure to fill that survey out because that helps us with webinars moving forward. As I mentioned before, please submit any questions that you have in the chat box, whether that be if you want us to slow down on a certain slide, or if you want us to elaborate a little bit more on a certain slide as well. Feel free to just let us know that in the chat box. And of course, when we have the Q&A session with Lisette, feel free to jot down any questions that you have in the chat box. So moving forward, all microphones will continue to be muted until that Q&A portion. But again, feel free to raise your hand or drop any questions in the chat box. Work for everyone? All right, perfect. So let's get this show on the road. To start off, let's talk about SEO. So really quickly, who knows what SEO stands for? I know we have so many acronyms out there, but this is one of them that you will definitely know the answer to the next time you're asked. Okay, Yamila says search something. That's a good start. Okay, Shola's got it. All right, so for those of you who didn't know, and again, it's totally fine, SEO stands for search engine optimization. And really what search engine optimization is about is kind of like what the word is saying. So search engines, the biggest of course being Google, though it's not the only search engine out there. It's basically figuring out ways to optimize for success within the search results page. And so what is search? I'm sure you're asking. Search is actually one of those key things that we do every single day and we may not even be thinking about it. I'm sure you may, if you're anything like me, you ask Google every question. We have Amazon Alexas now, where the whole point of them is to be able to send search queries verbally to an Amazon Alexa who is going to do the scrubbing for you. In 2020, we've obviously gotten a lot lazier, and so we don't actually want to type things out anymore. But hopefully that kind of demonstrates the fact that search is literally a part of our everyday life because we're naturally curious beings. We want to know things. We want to know how to get somewhere. We want to know how much something costs. We want to know just more information in general. And so broadly speaking, what makes search so powerful is the fact that you're really answering the questions to human beings and persons areas of just general inquiry. And so search can be broken down into three main categories. There's your informational search, which kind of represents the broadest amount of searches. So if you think about it, it's things that you may just instantly want to know. And be curious to know how you guys search, because the way that you search, sometimes people may put a full question like, how do you clean an oven? Some people may type in cleaning ovens. And believe it or not, based off of the words that you choose to actually make that search is going to dictate what the results are going to come back as. And so really what search engine optimization is all about is being able to make sure that based off the words that are used and all of the information available via that search query is going to be the one that's going to let you know what those results are going to be back. So that's informational search, which should make sense. But then there's transactional searches. And believe it or not, we do a lot more transactional searches than we realize. Transactional searches are for very specific things. So if say you're in the market for a stove, using that same oven example, you may want to know what the best stoves are out there. And so you may just type into Google or Bing or any of the other searches, but for today's purposes, we'll just focus on Google. So you may go into Google and just say, best stoves for under $1,000. And again, it doesn't always have to be in sentence form, but the more thought out and the more words that you put into your search, the more information naturally is going to come out. So that's transactional. Obviously, think of transactional as anything that really relates to a purchase or anything kind of numbers driven, because the results are then going to come back with, as you've probably seen, a results page that looks like 1,000 stoves that are under $1,000. And so hopefully you can kind of understand the difference between an informational search and then a transactional search. But then there's a navigational search, which is really where Google's kind of made its name. If you've been paying attention over the years, you've kind of noticed that Google has been really good about adapting their site to the search queries that we do. So naturally, with us wanting to know, how to get to a certain place, Google has their Google Maps functionality, which, believe it or not, uses Google search as its foundation. So you type in a location, and navigational search is going to send you to a certain place. So using that same stove or oven analogy, if you now want to just know where to buy a stove, Walmart more than likely is going to come to the top. Or believe it or not, Amazon is going to come to the top, because those companies are paying to have their results at the top of the page. And rightfully so. They have billions of dollars, and so they're going to pay to make sure that they're right at the top of the list. But the whole point of this presentation is to be able to help you figure out how you can, if you're a business owner, how can you compete within a search query to make sure that you're not dwarfed by the Amazons and the Walmarts of the world? Because it's not just all about the words that the person is searching, but it's also the intent. I may be typing in how do you clean an oven, and then typing in the best stoves to then ultimately get to Matthew's ovens. And all of those searches may not have gotten me there unless I was typing in Matthew's ovens. But based off of how well I've optimized my site, that will determine how high or how low I end up in that search. Does that hopefully make sense for everyone? And if it doesn't, totally fine. As we go on through the next slides, we'll go a little bit deeper. But let's play a quick game. So with all that said, what percentage do you think of all searches are for a local business or service? So this is where I'm going to want you to type into the chat box what number you're thinking. It's probably higher or lower than what you're thinking, but this is actually a very interesting point once you find out that number. So go ahead. I'll give you guys a second to type into the chat box what your guess is for this question. Okay. Anika says 90. Okay. It's a good guess. What else we got? 70% from Russell. Okay. I've seen a lot of 70s. I'm waiting for somebody to say $1, like Price is Right. Okay. 50. So it's about 50-50. Okay. It's a good guesses. Any other guesses? So everyone's going on the high end. Okay. 80%. Shane went for 30. Shane went for the $1. Okay. So that's interesting. Ooh, Jocelyn got us beat 16. Okay. So here's the answer. 46% of Google searches are for a local business or service. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because ultimately, if you are searching for something, unless it is something that is pie in the sky that you're hoping to actually buy down the line, a lot of my searches end up being for something that may be down the block for me. Or, for those of you who are in Harlem, I love the Edge, but I never go to the Edge's website to get to the Edge. I usually just type it into Google. So if you're anything like me, roughly 46% of my searches are going to be for something that is defined as local, which is generally within a 5-mile radius of where that person is located. All right, so that was a good one. Let's see what you guys think about that one. So with that said, what percent of local searches do you think actually lead to a purchase? So again, think about this as if someone is searching for something local, they already have it in their mind. How many of them do you think actually end up leading to a purchase next? Okay, we have 30, we got 20, okay. Shola says 45, we got 50 from Lisette, Mai says 16. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot in the 40s. Okay, so no one went as high as in the 90s, interestingly enough. Oh, I spoke too soon. Olivia said 90. Okay, so let's see what we got. 26%. Now, to you, that may sound, oh, Danny actually said 80 pre-COVID. That's a good point. But think about what that's saying. So 26% of all local searches actually lead to a purchase. So if you're a business owner who, say, has a restaurant that is in Harlem, and you have someone who's in Harlem searching for your business, you already have a glimpse into their mind. That means that they are of the mindset that they're either hungry, that they're either looking for a place to go locally, or that they ultimately could be looking for your business. And so that 26% kind of makes sense because most people are not ultimately going to just go directly from that search to a purchase, but roughly 25%, 25, 26, a quarter of them are going to lead to a purchase. And so we as business owners, how do we then turn that 46% and that 26% into insights that we can be actionable about? Well, this is why search is so important, because out of all of the things that we've discussed over this series, so as Donald mentioned, we've touched on everything from social media. We talked about all of the financial resources available to you. These are all things that in some form or fashion may require you to spend some kind of money in order to be able to really be impactful. But the beauty of search is that it's primarily organic. And we're going to talk about the difference between the paid and organic in a second. But what makes search so important in that is that it is extremely cost effective because it is really relying on someone else's thought process to be able to be impactful. And what you ultimately want to do as a business owner is just make sure that you are strategically placing yourself in the place to be found by them. It's essentially a game of lost and found. But Google, and you're going to hear us talk a lot about Google, but I do want to explain that part of that reason is because Google has built a full suite of products, which we will talk a lot about in the next slides, that are really out there to help business owners like us capitalize on the search intent, capitalize on really everything that a potential customer could want. And so search is very important because platforms like Google make it very easy for someone who potentially could be your next customer to stumble on your business, even if they didn't know that you existed before. And then finally, search is actually the perfect complement to any other marketing campaign that you could be doing. So let's just say hypothetically, you were recently picked up in, let's say, O Magazine. The perfect complement for that would then be your search campaign, because someone is going to either know your name or even a piece of something, and they're going to search for you. And based off where you pop up in there is going to be determined by the words they use, but again, also by how you've optimized your site to end up there. So I won't spend too much time on this, but I did just want to reinforce, if you didn't know before, why search is and should be something that should be a part of your mix moving forward. So let's take a step back. I know I mentioned SEO, and I also mentioned SEM. What's the difference? So now we know that search engine optimization is really just about the optimizing of your website for organic traffic. But like that image in the middle shows, this is actually what a lot of our search queries look like. Well, we've all seen them where in the middle, or excuse me, at the top, you'll see a bunch of results that come up. And there's that very small icon next to it that says ad. Google is essentially taking money to be able to have that prime positioning. So it's the first thing at the top of the list. And believe it or not, there's a reason why that's there. Because statistically speaking, the first ad, or excuse me, the first position on that page tends to be where people will actually click. Think about it. Think about your actual search queries. How many times have you gone to the 4th or 5th page in a search query to actually end up where you want? If you're not doing it, think about that in terms of your customer. Your customer is also more than likely not going to find you on that 4th or even 3rd page. And usually because when you're searching for something, you want a quick answer, right? So you're usually going to go for the first answer that pops up. And so that's where SEM versus SEO comes in. That blue section, which you'll see, represents the organic results. So that's Google's algorithm taking into account all of the words that are on your website and saying, okay, based off of what was searched, I think that this is what they were looking for, or at least the closest representation of what this person was looking for. But that's where SEM comes in. As I mentioned, you have companies like Walmart and Amazon, the big spenders out there who put tons, millions of dollars to really be able to have that prime positioning. But just because they're there, just because they're there doesn't mean that you can't be there as well. And I would encourage you to actually think about a healthy mix of using what's free, which is obviously that organic optimization, and potentially even testing out paid. Really what paid comes down to is just making sure that for a certain period of time, the words that you put money against, you're only going to be paying when someone actually clicks on that word. And so we'll go into a little bit more about that. But just for argument's sake, when you hear me mention SEM or SEO, this is generally what I'm talking about and where those things are located. Next slide. 1 second. Okay. So again, just to kind of visualize what the difference between the two are, not only is SEO free and SEM paid, but in terms of how quick you'll see results, SEO, because it's based on an algorithm and it's based off of keywords, it's going to take some time for you to see true results based off of any changes that you may be making. But also, the things that are the most important with an SEO campaign are going to be the page titles that you have on your page, the keywords that are listed within your site, and also, believe it or not, the page load speed. So if your website has a bunch of videos and graphics and things that make it very hard for the page to load quickly, those are things that are actually going to end up impacting your SEO, because not only is your user going to take a second to actually get the results that they want, but so is Google. Google's algorithm is not going to be able to pick up on that as quickly as we would hope. But one of the most impactful things about SEO is the fact that you're tapping into someone who is, again, actively searching for something. And so you want to be able to figure out what that perfect mix of page titles that are very specific to your business, but are also impactful in terms of the wording that you're using, to figure out what's the way to make sure that someone is going to be driven directly to my page as opposed to a page that doesn't have as strong of a word. And again, SEM is essentially all of those things that I just mentioned, but it's just adding a paid component. So another quick fact about search, as I mentioned, 33% of all search traffic results to the first search. But then that second one only gets 18% of traffic. So that shows that there's a huge drop off between that first result and that second result. And this is not the SEM section or the ad section. This is the actual organic results. So if you have a product that is a very competitive product, let's say, you have a jewelry brand similar to Lisette. There's tons of jewelry brands out there. So if I were to type in best jewelry brands, unless I have, or Lisette has on her page, that she is the best jewelry brand in any part of her copy, she's more than likely. So an exercise that's takes a little bit of time, but is worth it in the long run, is thinking like your consumer would think. What are some of the things that if you were someone that wanted to be able to find your business, would want to type in to Google to be able to get there? And those are the keywords that you ultimately want to make sure are part of your website so that Google's algorithm is able to pick up on them. Make sense? All right, moving forward. Let's just have a quick conversation about what an actual search query looks like, what the features are, and how those can impact your searchability. So you see some examples here on the screen. When you type in a search result, you're going to get that first blue bar, which is the page title. So when I mentioned you want to make sure that you have impactful page titles, this is representative of what I mean. So for example, on Advertising Age's website, they have an article that says the top 15 ad campaigns of the 21st century. So if you're a jewelry brand again, you may have the top 10 looks of 2020. And someone who is searching any of those words is more likely to find you based off of that being in your title than it being anywhere else on your page. Then there's the meta descriptions. If you type in, think of it as that almost like a quick description of your brand. Not quite your elevator speech, but if you wanted in one sentence or less to explain what your business is digitally, think of the meta description as that. And your meta description could be your best friend because it could say everything that you want to say about your brand very quickly, but also think about it as each of those words within that meta description applies to a search as well. And so Tesla's is a great example because there's a bunch of keywords in here that they've made sure that they will always come up for. Some of them are going to be sustainable, which is something that's very important these days. Safety, they have safest, quickest. They have electric cars. So if anyone types in any of those words, Tesla is going to pop up solely based off of it being in their meta description. And that's not even factoring in anything that they're doing from a paid standpoint. And then there's the keywords that I'm mentioning. So Google has a great platform called Google Search Console. It can be your best friend. When I say that it is a lot simpler than you may be thinking, I would advise after this session, you to just Google Search Console, and you'll see that when you go in there, all you'll have to do is type in your website, claim your website, and it'll be able to show you all of the words that people are using currently to be able to get your website, and it will also rank for you in order of the most effective to the least effective, which ones people are getting to you more. And these are essentially data points for you. As we mentioned in the beginning, Google is great at being able to provide you with these data points because then you can now turn those into insights. So for example, if I have my jewelry brand and I think that earrings may be what people usually type in to get to my business, but when I go into Google Search Console, I realize that people are actually coming to me for necklaces more often than not. That's a data point that can instantly turn into an action point because then I would hope that you then optimize your site to feature more words about necklaces than earrings. Not to say that you get rid of one or the other, but you want to be able to take that data point and turn it into something that is now actionable for you. Here's a very important thing to keep in mind though. Make sure more than anything right now in these COVID times that your website is mobile friendly. And I know it may seem like a daunting task, or you may not even have thought about it because you're like, I have a website already. If whatever someone sees on their desktop is more than likely going to be what they see on their smartphone. And that's actually not the case. Think about how you use your mobile phone. More likely than not, you're going to be doing any type of search or any type of activity on your phone as opposed to a desktop. And so with that said, the majority of the queries that you're going to be reaching, or excuse me, the queries that you're going to be receiving are going to be coming from a mobile device. So it's very important for you to make sure that the experience that someone has on a desktop should be very thorough, but whatever your mobile experience is should be very hard hitting. So using our website, for example, this is what our lovely website looks like on the left via desktop. But if you notice, it looks very different from what our mobile desktop, or excuse me, our mobile website looks like, because it's much more text focused and it's very much so driven to drive you to a specific location on our site. And that's by design, because we've taken into account all of the tips that I just mentioned to you to make sure that someone who comes to our site via their mobile phone is going to be able to find what they're looking for, because we've already pre-planted many of the words that they're going to be looking for. So hopefully that makes sense. But as a next step coming out of this, I would definitely advise you to look into what your mobile site looks like. You can even do it right now. Just see what your site looks like and really take a step back and think, if I were a consumer, is this the easiest way for someone to be able to make it through my site? And then take it from there. A few other things that I mentioned in terms of keys for success. Again, there is Google Search Console, but I would argue the number one thing that you can do as a business owner right now in these COVID times is to make sure that you claim your Google My Business. And you probably have never heard of Google My Business. And that's by design. Google's My Business is really supposed to be your digital storefront on Google's platform. So if you typed in your business right now into Google, what pops up likely isn't going to be your Google My Business if you haven't claimed it. But if you have, someone typing in your specific name, or excuse me, the specific name of your business is going to get that before they get anything. And that's a powerful tool, because by you updating that, you're going to automatically make sure that someone can get every piece of information that they would need to know in order to make make a purchase or to be able to visit your business, all from that one location. And all of these things that we're mentioning to you on this call are all free. As small business owners, free is your best friend. And in this case, Google will be your best friend in terms of being able to figure out, how can I position my business as positively and as strategically as possible via the suite of products that Google has. So again, make sure you go claim and update your Google My Business. It's literally Google My Business. You can Google that as well. And also Google Search Console. And finally, make sure that you have a strong mobile site. And so, quick recap, because I know I flew through a lot of things. Everything that I mentioned there will all ultimately help you optimize to be able to boost your organic ranking. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to be able to make sure that outside of Instagram, outside of Facebook, outside of any of these social platforms, if someone literally wanted to Google the name of my business, or at least my industry or a product of mine, I want to be able to make sure that they're organically able to get there without me ever having to spend a dollar. And then based off of how your site pops up within a Google query, you may decide that, okay, I want to be able to buy some traffic to be able to get a little bit higher. And if that's the case for you, I would definitely advise you to look further into Google Search Console, because their AdWords platform is where you would take advantage of all of those paid components. Hopefully all that made sense, because I'm going to now pass on to my colleague Donald, who's going to take you through how you can take all those data points that I just mentioned via search and turn them into action.
All right, thank you, Matthew. I appreciate that. And I would maybe, before I even get into that, I want to maybe double down. I think as Matthew kind of shared some of our images of our site, I think what we've done during these pandemic times is really kind of do a little bit of house cleaning. So we've been combing through our website, redesigning it, redoing our social media, and then really ramping up on our ability to be discovered. And then also in tandem, finding ways in which we can directly connect with the people in our community. So, you know, now is a better time than ever to kind of take advantage of the opportunity to really focus on developing some kind of your foundation as you build for the future. And I think with that said, I want to start talking about data. So we've covered a lot of information regarding, previous sessions, marketing, financials. And what I want to do now is really emphasize the importance of, as you run these campaigns, as you produce different enhancements to amplify your brand, at the same time, you want to make sure that you're tracking this information, you're measuring it, so that you're able to take the results of the activities you're doing and be able to measure that to apply it to your business so that you can continue to refine and improve it and make it more operational. So I think with that said, let's transition to the next slide. So I want to kick this conversation off on data with a couple of statistics. The first being the one we have here on the screen. So what I found this one pretty interesting. So 80% of companies report that data quality has a moderate to significant impact on the marketing campaigns and their sales efforts. And that's a pretty alarming number. And this was surveyed by a lot of both mid-sized and large companies. And what I think this statistic tells me is that there's such an importance to not only going out there and trying and experimenting with different things, whether it's improving your SEO, your SEM, or launching different advertising campaigns on social media, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're also measuring along the way, because as you test and refine and experiment with different ways in which you can amplify and market your brand, you want to make sure that you're taking the information and the results from it, so that with every new campaign, you're making it better and better, and you're taking the insights and information and applying it so that each campaign you do is more gives you more of a return and is more bang for your buck. So let's transition to the next statistic on the next page. Okay, and here another interesting one as well are that companies miss out on about 15 to 20% of an increase in return on investment if the data is not a central part of their marketing and sales decisions. And this is a key statistic for me too, because what I want to make sure, if anything that we leave from this conversation, is the importance and the information on how to market via search. But in addition to that, understanding that when you're doing these campaigns, it's best to make decisions based on data and information and things that you're seeing. So as you experiment, as you play around, you want to make sure that with every campaign you launch, you're using information and data as a way to inform your approach. And then as you continue to do that, you can continue to refine and get more effective over time. Okay, and I'll transition to the next slide. So this really will kick off what I want to focus on in really a three-phased approach. And the first phase is data. So what is that? What is the data? What is data as a phase? So what I really want to harp here is that it's important to gain insights through a large amounts of diverse data. And I think diverse is very important. So I've listed a few different data types here. You have demographic data. So, you know, the geography, the location, the age, the gender of your customers or your followers. Engagement, how people are engaging with your website, with your brand, with your marketing campaigns. Conversion, when you're launching different initiatives and you're exposing your brand, how are you converting a potential customer to a customer? How are you getting that person from discovering you on a search and then getting them to actually buy? Acquisition, how are you acquiring customers? How are you acquiring followers? What things are you doing to increase your following? And then behavior, how are your followers or your customers behaving and engaging with your website, with your brand, with your social media? These are all key data types that are diverse and give you a full picture of really what's going on with your business. And I want to make sure that it's easy to just say, I'm going to look at my sales, and if my sales increased month over month, I'm doing well. But you could also leave a lot on the table. So as you're looking at sales, you're complementing it with these types of data points so that you're understanding as things are moving up, down, or staying flat, you can understand what other data points are potentially playing a role in the fluctuation you're seeing in your sales or your end goals. And also I want to list a few platforms. Now, it's this is not too sophisticated, and there's many of free options that are available that you can play with. So the how and how you complete this phase is really by combining the tech side with the business side and finding value in the data that you're using by leveraging that information, applying it to different platforms that allow you to do it at a broader, more efficient scale, and then not being afraid to use different open source technologies like Google Analytics, and different things of that nature, and then applying those and creating more of an alliance network so that you're combining your sales with the traffic on your website, with your information on your ad campaign to see how engagement plays a role in your sales. And a few of these platforms here that I've highlighted here are Google Analytics, and I definitely want to harp on the importance of this one. It's a free platform that you can look up right now check it out, and you can connect it to your website, and it gives you the ability to monitor things like traffic, engagement, and then as you're doing different campaigns via search or other, you're able to kind of monitor and measure those performances. So it's a great tool, and it's free as well. So I definitely recommend that you go check that out. Also, many of you might be familiar, especially those who sell products, there's Shopify, and Shopify is another great platform that enables you to effectively have a marketplace online. It gives you the opportunity to create and sell product and also retain payment online, but on the back end, it allows you to track your sales as well. And it's a key platform that you can also connect to Google Analytics. And some more here are just getting more on the data side. So you have Microsoft Power BI, which has a free version as well. And this is another platform that allows you to easily kind of integrate different things. So if you have something going on for sales, you have something going on for advertising, you have something going on for your website, you can all connect it within under one umbrella, and it allows you to kind of toggle between that information, slice and dice it, and compare it. So I definitely recommend that platform as well, and there's a free version. And then Tablio. Tablio is another great kind of more enterprise level product that does a similar thing, but in a more advanced scale. So these are definitely platforms that I encourage you to check out and can definitely get you well on your way in becoming more familiar with data and using it as a tool. So with that, I want to transition to the next slide. All right, so now we're in our second phase. So we've taken care of the fundamentals, right? We have our data in place. We've looked up these different platforms. We understand how they work. And now as we're selling, as we're marketing, as we're working on our search, we're now looking at data as we go each day to see, okay, this is working, this isn't working. So now you want to take it to that next level. So what is the phase of analytics and insights? It's discovering and driving actionable insights through the right combination of quantitative techniques and then also different technologies that can improve things from customer retention to acquisition to efficiency. So this is where you kind of build that bridge to begin telling stories. So, I can highlight a few examples of things we've done in servicing our clients. So what we've done is, we'll initially have a consultation with a client that we're either helping out or we're helping build a campaign for. And the first thing we want to do is understand their background. When you've done campaigns in the past, what has worked? What does your sales look like? What is the margins and the cost per product on your different various things that you offer? And how do you factor in shipping and things like that? And once you have the behaviors and the mechanics of a business, you can then look at and combine that data to begin to tell a story. So this is what this phase is all about. Not simply looking at your sales and saying it went up 5% or it went down 1%, but how does sales correlate to an advertisement campaign? When I offer buy one, get one free, and I see my sales are flat, why is that? And then the data might tell you that geography-wise, people care more about shipping costs than they do a free accessory product that they would be willing to purchase if shipping was cheaper. So data will be able to tell you and give you examples to understand why customer behavior might be going one way or another. And that is what this phase is all about. And the how. How do you do this? Well, you apply a broad spectrum of analytically based assets. And really what that means is, do I have information on the various data types that I can use? And then how am I then creating opportunities to then allow for significant impact? Am I combining this data? Am I looking at it? Am I looking at it not from just one angle, from growth, but also year over year and things of that nature? So it's really just kind of playing around and getting to a point in which you can get it to tell you a story. So let's move on to the next phase. And now it's time for action. So you've done your homework. You set up your foundation. You have your platforms in place. You're actively looking at it. Now you're even getting into analytics and you're beginning to combine and look at your data and seeing how that might correlate to other activities you're doing. How did my sales go up when I do a pop-up? Why did this pop-up have more success than another? And it could be the timing, the customers that you marketed to. These are all things that your data can tell you. Now that you've done all of that homework, it's time to take action. It's your moment of truth, and it's your time to take a leap of faith. So it's adopting the insights that you've done and then transforming that into a process or a decision. And process is important because this whole phase should not just be an exercise that leads you to a new launch of a product, but it should be something that's in your core DNA of your business. every decision you make should be data informed to an extent. It's not going to be a perfect science. Not everything you're going to do, there will be data and information for, but it's important that you have a behavior and a DNA in that when you want to launch a product, you first look at the successes of your prior ones. So you might notice that that there might be a cyclical nature to the products and how popular they are to certain regions. So again, going back to some client examples of ours, we had a customer who did a holiday campaign and fell flat most years. And so when we came on board, we looked at a lot of their products to kind of test what was going on. And one of the quickest things we saw is as we built out decisions on what promotions they should run, we noticed that a lot of their customers geographically came from areas where there were products that were simply more popular. So in Texas, for example, one brand of a candle sold really well. So we tended to kind of bifurcate and break up the campaigns. We targeted a certain campaigns to the popularity of a product in that state. So we weren't applying a broad campaign everywhere, but we kind of more segmented it to regions where we knew sales were better. That way we can help our clients spend less money to get a better return on sales. So that's just an example of using data as a DNA in your business to save you money and making more of the cost that you put out for marketing, getting more in return for it. So that's kind of something that I really want you to take away from this conversation. And the way you do that is by deploying new programs, using your tools, using your processes, and turning those insights into actions by combining the data, getting it to a proven state, and then taking that leap of faith to try it out. And the only way you'll know is by making sure that you're continuing to measure it within every step. So let's transition to the next slide. So kind of in summary, we've kind of walked through really those three core phases: data, analytics, insights, and actions. So data, building your foundation, getting your platforms, trying to build a foundation for sustainable growth. Your analytics, where you try to identify those stories, figure out what's going on. And then lastly, taking action and launching both an impactful but measurable initiative that could help transform your business. So with that, I'd like to transition over to my colleague, Kevin, who's going to bring on our special guest that we're all excited to hear from and kind of lead us through this talented talk with Lisette, the founder of JAM RICO.
Oh yeah. Thank you, Donnie. And hello, Lisette. Thank you for joining us. I'm very happy and proud that you're able to join us. I've known Lisette for a long time, and seeing her business grow over the past 4 or so years has been an amazing sight to see, especially for all of us, especially. And so, with that, Lisette, excited to have you. Excited to this conversation. So if you don't mind, just if you could start by just introducing yourself and introducing your business, that'll be very helpful.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So happy to be on the call with all of you. And thank you, Talented 10, for inviting me to chat with your audience. I'm Lisette Scott. I'm the owner of JAM RICO. And like Kevin said, I started my business 4 years ago in 2016. My business came out of my desire to be a little bit more creative. I worked in the apparel industry and did so for about 8 years before I started my line. And with every corporate, I started with business, but ended up in a corporate environment doing apparel design and missed the creativity that I used to have working with small businesses. So I found I knew that my path would eventually lead to bigger and larger companies, and I knew that wasn't for me. And I didn't want to go back to working at a small firm. So I decided I needed to figure out what was best for me and launch my own brand. And I've always loved designing jewelry as well as clothes, but jewelry was my first love. So I decided to follow that passion. And I wanted to make it something that I loved to wear, but also had a deeper meaning for myself. So I decided to create a line that focused on my culture, which is Jamaican and Puerto Rico. And that's where the name comes from, JAM RICO.
Fantastic. If you don't mind, just, how has your business progressed over the past few years? How would you say that your business has grown? Would be helpful. for the audience?
Sure. When I first started my line, I kind of jumped into it because I was so excited about my idea. I wanted everyone to wear everything I created. So I would say I kind of rushed a little bit because I was just excited to kind of launch and see what I could create and develop. And in doing so, with the customers and the clients that I got, I was able to see what they liked, what they didn't like, and kind of use that first year as a test for what I wanted to really create. And then as I saw that model of what I was developing kind of grow and what I wanted to improve, the next 2 years I kind of used to focus on how to grow my line. So in the beginning, I only started with about 6 styles, and those styles I developed in different colorways and kind of worked to make them better and kind of what I wanted to create for each customer to enjoy. And then once I got that science down for the styles that I wanted, then I could take that additional time and extra time that I had to focus on building the website a little bit more, investing more in the business, and kind of growing more so online. In the first 2 years, the first 3 years, I did a lot of pop-ups and got to know my customer face to face. But now this year, I am, especially with COVID, focusing on growing online through all social media platforms and through my website.
Right. Can you just on COVID, because I've seen it firsthand from a social media standpoint, just talk about this explosive growth that you've experienced over the past 6 months and how you've been able to pivot it. I mean, it's remarkable what you've been able to do. So it'd be great to share with the audience.
Yes, as Matthew was saying, with using your Google Analytics and just seeing where your customers are coming from, I have been definitely focusing on where to position our brand. I'm not the best with all platforms because it is me running my business alone. So for me to be across all platforms, it is a bit difficult. I'm not the best at Twitter. So that wasn't my strong point. I love Pinterest, so we were on there. And Facebook, I've usually used whatever I post on Instagram for Facebook. But I noticed the last 6 months that most of my sales, since I wasn't doing pop-ups as often, was coming from Instagram. So I took that opportunity to say, look, let's, vamp up our social media presence. I wasn't posting every day. So now we post every day. We have something that we talk about on our platform and our feed, and then I also share every day in our stories, and that has definitely brought a lot of more interest into our brand, and we've seen every day increasing in followers. I would say before the 6 months, I had about I think I had like almost 4,000 followers, and now in the 6 month span since COVID and the Black Lives Matter movement, we've almost reached 10,000 followers. So I would say that is definitely from us, or from me, just making sure that I had something to share every day with our audience to keep them interested. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I was continuously selling our product, but maybe talking about our new inspiration, what we have planned for next year or the couple months to come, and bringing different things that could keep our customer interested as we continue to share our product.
That's great. Going from 4 to 10,000 in a few months. I know that you mentioned that you utilize analytics to be able to guide you towards Instagram. What platforms are you utilizing for your analytics to be able to allow you to dig deeper into your customer base?
Right now, I'm using Shopify. So I check about once a week to see at the end of the week where people are finding us. On Shopify, they also show a lot of articles have been written about us recently. So I'm able to see how many customers have come from those articles, if there was a spike, where those people are finding us, and through each social media platform as well. And sometimes people are just finding us through searching our website also.
Oh, interesting. And so, through Shopify, you're able to determine generally where people are from, what platforms they're using as well. Is that right?
Yes, so I can
in terms of
see
social
what
media, how
part
you
of the
can.
world. Yeah, and even on Shopify, you can see when I was having that spike and seeing where all my customers are coming from, I could see live where people were shopping. If there was someone adding something to their cart right away, or if they had passed up their shopping cart, you can also see if we send a recovery email if someone had left something in their shopping cart. You can also see if that person decided to purchase afterwards as well.
I got it. It sounds like you're using data to really push you forward. And it's been, you know, at least over the past year that you really shifted towards a data-driven business. Is
Yes.
that a good assumption? What led you towards that direction of utilizing data?
Right. To be honest, it was definitely COVID. I personally love connecting with my customers. I love meeting people in person
Hmm.
and seeing them try on the product, getting to talk to people. But, you know, I am one person and I can't be everywhere at the same time. So it took me a little bit of time to kind of make sure that I revamped my website, which was before COVID happened, but to have all those things ready in order to say, okay, let me focus on the website and have that be what we really are pushing and driving forward. And
Right.
I'm really grateful for that time at home to just say, okay, how can this happen? How can I make this change? And how can I retain that customer in a different way that I normally wouldn't when I would meet them in person?
That's very interesting. So I know that you mentioned a few minutes ago about, like, you know, ensuring that you keep your customers engaged. How do you plan on actually going about doing that? Because I know that, you know, given the times right now, you're able to receive a massive explosion of new customers, and your content on your Instagram is fantastic. How do you maintain that, especially given the environment that we're in right now? I feel like it's more challenging than ever
Yes.
to be able to do that.
Well, before the spike and before we had increased our customer base, I knew that as a customer myself, when I'm shopping product, I don't necessarily want to always be sold. So I don't want to see someone's Instagram and to have the same product pushed to me or the same email blast pushed to me with that product. And I know as a customer, I also like a story. I also like to know why this product was made. Why am I buying this product and what benefit would I have from it? So I decided to kind of step back and see how I could make my platform a little more interesting, because I don't want to continue to push that agenda all the time. I love wearing my earrings and I love wearing my jewelry and I want all my customers to enjoy it as well. But I don't want you
Hmm.
to feel that I'm always selling a product. So I started adding different
Hmm.
aspects to our platform by having live chats with other customers. We'll have one next month with a woman who sells plants. So trying to engage my customer with things I already enjoy. We had someone on that has a plantain cookbook and cooks plantains in her kitchen and sells them. So I want to create a story that takes you along my journey of the things that I enjoy as a business owner and enjoy in my home, and bring that Caribbean flavor to my Instagram as well. So right now we've been sharing a lot of imagery of Puerto Rico because that's our new focus for our new collection. And we'll continue to share different highlights of the country as well to kind of bring the story to you about what's next.
Fantastic. And then just lastly, as we're coming up on time here, I mean, is there anything that you would leave, you know, the audience or people with here, piece of advice or any words of wisdom that you may have?
Piece of advice. Right now, I think that a business owner and anyone who's looking to start a business, you definitely need to utilize the time that we have. We're never going to get this back in order to build and grow whatever you are trying to focus on. I made sure that I know that we've been watching a lot of Netflix and shows at home and trying to keep ourselves occupied and busy, but definitely make that this time and, you know, utilize the time you have to develop and build. And if that is increasing your focusing on your data or building a new website to drive more customers into your business, use the time that you have now to utilize that.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Lisette and JAM RICO. Appreciate you.
Yes,
You guys can.
questions.
Yeah, does anyone in the have any questions? You can either drop it in the chat box or just hit the raise hand button, and we'll unmute you. You can ask Lisette yourself.
Yes.
Anyone?
Or we'll give it a few.
Question, 1 second.
You got one.
Go ahead, Mai.
Hi, Lisette and everyone from T10 Collective. Thank you for doing this. So I wanted to ask, because I think I may have missed it or just wanted to hear more of what you had to say, but especially now everything is very much digital. And so I know you mentioned that you don't want to just be, you know, doing transactional relationships where you're just trying to get purchases and just pushing sales, but rather what has been your pivot in creating, I guess, a community base and just like expanding on your messaging and what you think resonates most with your customer base, and then how to like expand on that further?
Yes, so right now I've been trying to focus on artists and people that are in the Caribbean. I launched a ambassador program, and we have one ambassador right now that's in Aruba that's going to be helping us get the message across about our inspiration from the Caribbean and where she's from, and kind of share more about the island. And we're looking to find one woman in each country. Usually every year we travel to the Caribbean, and with COVID and the unfamiliarity of like what's going to happen next, we're not really sure if we'll be able to travel to the Caribbean this year. So we launched that as an initiative to kind of still continue our story and still share what the islands have to offer. So that's one thing that we launched that has we've seen a lot of interest in, and people are excited about learning more about where each person lives and kind of get more into the Caribbean and the countries that we visit, but might necessarily go to people's homes. So we're focusing on that. A second thing that we worked on was connecting with other business owners that have Caribbean inspirations or Caribbean backgrounds as well. So we've worked with someone that had a plantain company, and we're going to work with someone that has a plant company, and I'm going to also have a Dominican chef that we're going to work with as well. So we're kind of trying to figure out ways to create the conversation a little bit differently, but also bring interest into our site and our website, and keep the customers interested in what we're sharing. I love to keep a conversation. I love the comments, and I like to interact with my customers and people that are following us. So I'm trying to figure out ways to kind of work around posting products. And we're also sharing our articles and working with bloggers as well, who are sharing more about our product also.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions? Anyone else? The attendees have any questions?
Okay. Lisette, again, we just wanted to say thank you very much. And please, everyone, check out Lisette's products at jamandrico.com, as well as please go on her Instagram page. We will again provide this presentation, and so don't worry about writing it down. You'll be able to have quick access to it. But again, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. to be here, and thank you guys for having me.
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So we are right around time. Thank you everyone for staying through with us. That hour mark a few minutes ago, but just want to wrap it up by saying not only again, thank you to Lisette, thank you for all of you for joining, but also thank you to our partners, the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce. You know, we've, as Donnie mentioned in the beginning, we've been in close collaboration with them throughout this whole process, and they've been fantastic, not only to us, but the greater Harlem community at large. And they're currently running a Support Harlem Now relief fund. It's a GoFundMe that will, all funds will go towards helping local business off the ground that have been impacted by COVID. And so if you should feel compelled to do so, we will be providing that link that you see at the bottom. Obviously not right now, but in the email that we with the materials, as well as within this deck, it will be clickable. Be sure to don't feel compelled, to do so. But just want to again give them a quick shout out for being great partners and for helping us put this on. And that's it. Again, I'm Matthew. Thank you for joining us. We are going to be rolling out another webinar soon. So be on the lookout for that. If you don't already, please follow us on Instagram at T10Collective.com. If you're interested in working with us, feel free to drop us a line. We have our email there. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you again. Have a great one.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.